purpose first, love second. Now I'm ready for marriage. For a long time, I believed that life had a certain order that needed to be followed. Not because someone forced that belief on me, but because experience slowly taught me that some things must come before others if you truly want them to last. When I was younger, like many people, I thought love should come first. I imagined that meeting the right person would somehow guide everything else into place, that once love appeared, the rest of life would naturally figure itself out. But reality has a way of teaching lessons that imagination often ignores. Over time, I realized that without purpose, love can become fragile. When two people don't yet understand their own direction in life, their connection can easily become dependent on uncertainty. Instead of strengthening each other, they sometimes end up searching for stability in one another. And that kind of pressure can slowly weaken even the strongest feelings. So somewhere along the journey, I made a quiet decision. Before I focused on love, I needed to focus on purpose. Purpose is something that gives life direction. It is the reason you wake up with determination rather than hesitation. It is the quiet voice that reminds you why your efforts matter, even during days when progress feels slow or uncertain. Finding purpose is rarely simple. It doesn't arrive with a clear announcement telling you exactly what you're meant to do. Instead, it reveals itself gradually through experiences, challenges, and moments where you realize what truly motivates you. For me, those moments came through work, responsibility, and the constant effort to build something meaningful out of my abilities. There were times when the path felt clear and exciting. Opportunities appeared, progress felt visible, and I could see how each step forward was bringing me closer to the future I wanted. But there were also moments when the path felt uncertain. Moments when doubts appeared quietly in the back of my mind. Was I choosing the right direction? Was the effort I was investing truly leading somewhere meaningful? Those questions are part of every journey toward purpose. They force you to reflect, to adapt, and to grow stronger through the process of finding your own answers. During those years, relationships were not the center of my focus. Not because I didn't believe in love, but because I understood something important. If I entered a relationship before understanding my own direction in life, I might bring uncertainty into something that deserves stability, and love deserves stability. Love should not feel like two people trying to complete each other's unfinished lives. Instead, it should feel like two individuals who have already built their own foundations choosing to walk forward together. That understanding shaped the way I approached relationships for many years. I didn't rush into connections simply because they felt exciting in the moment. I paid attention to compatibility, values, and the emotional maturity that allows a relationship to grow rather than collapse under pressure. Sometimes that meant walking away from situations that might have worked temporarily, but lacked the depth needed for something lasting. At the time, those decisions were not always easy. There were moments when I wondered whether focusing so strongly on purpose meant delaying the possibility of love longer than necessary. But something inside me always returned to the same conclusion. If love was meant to be part of my life, it would appear when the time was right. And when that moment came, I wanted to be ready for it. Being ready for love means more than simply wanting companionship. It means understanding yourself. It means knowing what kind of life you want to build and what values you refuse to compromise along the way. It means having the emotional strength to support another person rather than relying on them to provide stability you have not yet created for yourself. Over time, that preparation changed the way I viewed marriage. When I was younger, marriage felt like a distant milestone, something people reached after falling deeply in love and deciding they wanted to stay together forever. But as I matured, I began to see marriage differently. Marriage is not just a declaration of love. It is a commitment to partnership. It is two people agreeing to share responsibilities, challenges, successes, and the countless ordinary moments that make up daily life. That kind of commitment requires readiness. Readiness and emotional maturity. Readiness and personal stability. And readiness and understanding that love alone cannot sustain a relationship without effort and mutual respect. For years, I continued building my life with those ideas in mind. I focused on strengthening my sense of purpose. I worked toward goals that mattered to me, learned from mistakes along the way, and gradually created the stability that once felt distant. And somewhere during that journey, something unexpected happened. Love appeared. Not in the dramatic way I once imagined, but in a calm and steady way that felt almost surprising. Meeting you was not part of some carefully planned timeline. It happened naturally. Yet from the beginning, something about our connection felt different from anything I'd experienced before. There was a sense of understanding between us that did not require constant explanation. A sense that both of us had already traveled our own journeys of growth before our paths finally crossed. You had your own purpose, your own experiences, Your own strength built through the lessons life had given you, and that independence made our connection even more meaningful. Because we were not searching for someone to complete us. We were two individuals who had already learned how to stand on our own. Now, we simply wanted to walk forward together. That difference changed everything. Our conversations were not filled with unrealistic expectations or pressure to prove anything to each other. Instead, they were filled with honesty. We spoke about our goals, our values, and the kind of life we hope to build in the future. And the more we spoke, the more I realized something important. For the first time, the idea of marriage no longer felt distant. It felt natural. Not because society expects it or because people believe it should happen at a certain age, but because the foundation that marriage requires had already begun to exist between us. Purpose, respect, trust. Those elements were already present in our connection. And love had grown naturally on top of them. Looking back now, I understand why the journey needed to happen in that order. Purpose first, love second. Because purpose gave me direction, it taught me discipline, patience, and the value of building something meaningful over time. And once that foundation was strong enough, love appeared in a way that felt stable rather than uncertain. Now, when I think about marriage, I no longer see it as a distant milestone or an abstract idea. I see it as a natural continuation of a partnership built on purpose, respect, and genuine understanding. It is not the beginning of love. It is the decision to protect and nurture the love that has already grown between two people who are ready to build a life together. And after everything life has taught me, I can say something with confidence. Purpose shaped the person I became. Love showed me who I want to share that life with. And now, for the first time, I truly feel ready for marriage. The idea that purpose should come before love was not something I understood immediately. It took years of experience, observation, and reflection before that belief became clear in my mind. When people are younger, the world often tells them that love is the most important thing to find as quickly as possible. Stories, movies, and even conversations with friends make it seem as though life truly begins only after you meet the right person. But life rarely unfolds in such a simple way. There are many people who fall deeply in love before they fully understand themselves. In the beginning, everything feels exciting and full of possibility. But as time passes and responsibilities grow, the questions about direction, purpose, and personal growth begin to appear. If those questions remain unanswered, they can slowly create tension in even the most passionate relationships. I began to notice this pattern while observing the lives of people around me. Some friends rushed into relationships without taking the time to understand what they truly wanted from life. At first, everything looked perfect from the outside. They seemed happy, confident, and certain that they had found something lasting. But eventually, the challenges of real life started to test those relationships. Career changes, financial pressures, personal ambitions, and the natural process of growing as individuals began to reveal differences that had never been discussed at the beginning. Those differences were not always dramatic, but they were enough to create distance. Watching those experiences taught me something important. Love alone cannot carry the weight of an entire future. Love needs a strong foundation to survive the inevitable challenges that life brings. That foundation is built from purpose, stability, and the emotional maturity that allows two people to support each other rather than compete or depend entirely on one another. Once I understood that, my priorities became clearer. I did not reject the idea of love, but I refused to chase it blindly. Instead, I chose to invest my energy in building a life that felt meaningful on its own. I wanted to become the kind of person who could stand confidently on his own path before asking someone else to walk beside me. That journey required patience. There were years when the focus remained entirely on growth and responsibility. I worked toward goals that mattered to me, learned new skills, and gradually created stability in areas of life that once felt uncertain. Some days were filled with progress and excitement. On those days, the effort felt worthwhile, and the future looked bright. But there were also days when progress felt slow, and doubts began to appear. During those moments, it would have been easy to question whether the focus on purpose was with the sacrifices it required. Sometimes the sacrifices were simple things like time. Hours spent working toward long-term goals meant fewer opportunities to socialize or explore casual relationships. At times it felt as if life was moving forward while I remained focused on building something that only existed as a vision in my mind. But every time those doubts appeared, I reminded myself of the reason behind the journey. Purpose is not something you pursue for immediate satisfaction. It is something you build so that the life you create later has depth and stability. Slowly, that effort began to show results. The direction that once felt uncertain started to become clearer. I gained confidence not only in my abilities, but also in the decisions I was making. The more I worked toward my goals, the more I realized that the patience I had shown was strengthening my character. Patience teaches discipline. Discipline teaches resilience, and resilience prepares you for the responsibilities that come with building a life alongside someone else. Those years of growth changed the way I looked at relationships. Instead of asking whether someone made me feel excited or attracted, I began asking deeper questions. Do our values align? Can we support each other's ambitions? Are we capable of communicating honestly during difficult moments? Those questions may not sound romantic, but they are essential for building something that lasts. Real love is not only about emotion, it is also about compatibility in the areas of life that truly matter. Eventually, life introduced me to someone who made those questions feel less complicated. Meeting you was not something I had planned or expected. It happened naturally, without the dramatic circumstances that people often imagine when they think about meaningful relationships. But from the very beginning, something about our conversations felt different. There was a sense of balance between us. You had your own ambitions, your own sense of purpose, and your own understanding of the direction your life was taking. You were not searching for someone to define your identity or complete your story. Instead, you were building your own life. That independence made our connection feel genuine, because when two people meet after developing their own sense of purpose, they do not approach the relationship with desperation or unrealistic expectations. They approach it with respect for each other's journeys, respect for the effort each person has invested in becoming who they are, respect for the fact that love should enhance life rather than replace the foundation someone has already built. Our conversations reflected that respect. We spoke openly about our experiences, our goals, and the values that guided our decisions. Instead of pretending that life had always been easy, we acknowledged the challenges that had shaped us. Those conversations created a sense of trust between us. Trust is built when two people are willing to be honest about their past and transparent about their future. It grows when both individuals recognize that vulnerability is not weakness, but a sign of confidence in the strength of the connection they share. With you, that trust developed naturally. There was no pressure to prove anything. Instead, there was curiosity and understanding. One of the things I admired most about you was the clarity you had about your own life. You understood what mattered to you and what kind of future you hoped to create. That clarity is rare. Many people spend years drifting through life without truly understanding their own priorities. But you had taken the time to reflect on what you wanted, and that self-awareness made our connection stronger. Because when two people understand themselves, they are better prepared to understand each other. As our conversations continued, I began to see how easily our values aligned. We both believed that relationships should be built on honesty and mutual respect. We both valued personal growth and the importance of supporting each other's ambitions. Those shared beliefs created a sense of partnership between us. Partnership is the true essence of marriage. Marriage is not simply a celebration of love. It is a commitment to building a life together through cooperation and shared responsibility. It means supporting each other's dreams while also working together toward common goals. It means navigating challenges as a team rather than as individuals trying to solve everything alone. For many years, I wondered whether I would ever feel ready for that kind of commitment. Not because I feared responsibility, but because I wanted to be certain that I could offer the stability and support that marriage requires. Now, after the journey I have taken and the connection we have built, that certainty feels real. Purpose came first in my life because it taught me who I am and what I stand for. Love came second because it appeared naturally once that foundation existed. And now, standing at this point in my life, I understand something clearly. Marriage is not the beginning of purpose or love. It is the moment when two people who have already discovered those things individually decide to unite their paths and create something even stronger together. That realization fills me with confidence rather than hesitation, because the journey that once felt uncertain has finally led me to a place where I understand both my purpose and the person I want to share that purpose with. And after everything life has taught me, that understanding feels like the beginning of something truly meaningful. As the years passed and the idea of purpose slowly became clearer in my life, I began to understand something deeper about growth. Growth is rarely dramatic. It does not arrive with a sudden realization that instantly transforms everything. Instead, it happens gradually, through repeated experiences that shape the way you think, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you view the world around you. For a long time, I focused almost entirely on building that growth within myself. My days were filled with responsibilities, goals, and the quiet determination to keep moving forward even when progress felt slow. There were moments when it felt like life was testing my patience, asking me to continue working toward something that had not yet fully revealed its purpose. But over time, those efforts began to change the way I saw life. I became more patient with uncertainty. I learned that not every answer appears immediately, and not every path reveals itself clearly from the beginning. Sometimes you simply have to continue walking forward, trusting that the effort you invest today will create opportunities tomorrow. That mindset shaped the person I became. I no longer chased quick results or temporary excitement. Instead, I focused on building something stable, a life that felt meaningful even when no one else was watching. That stability became one of the most valuable things I had. It gave me confidence in my own direction. It allowed me to make decisions without constantly seeking approval from others. And most importantly, it taught me that happiness does not come from rushing through life in search of the next emotional high. It comes from building something that lasts. During those years, I also observed the relationships around me more carefully. I saw how some couples struggled because they had never taken the time to understand their own identities before joining their lives together. At the beginning, the relationships were filled with excitement. But as responsibilities grew and real-life challenges appeared, they discovered that they had never discussed the deeper questions about life. Questions like, what kind of future do we want to build? How do we handle disagreements? What values guide the decisions we make together? Without answers to those questions, even strong feelings sometimes struggled to survive. Watching those experiences strengthened my belief that purpose must come before love. Because purpose teaches you who you are. It teaches you what matters to you, what you believe in, and what kind of life you want to create. Without that understanding, relationships become confusing rather than fulfilling. Eventually, after years of focusing on growth and purpose, something unexpected happened. Life introduced me to you. At first, it felt like any other conversation. There was no dramatic moment where the world suddenly stopped and announced that something important was beginning. But there was something different. Our conversation felt easy, not forced, not rehearsed, and not filled with the awkward attempts to impress each other that often appear when two people are meeting for the first time. Instead, it felt natural. We spoke about simple things at first, daily routines, small experiences, and the kind of conversations that people often have when they are beginning to learn about each other. But even those simple conversations revealed something deeper. You had your own sense of purpose, your own ambitions, your own experiences that had shaped the way you looked at the world. That independence immediately stood out to me, because it meant you were not searching for someone to complete your life. You were already building your own path. And that made our connection feel balanced. When two people meet after developing their own purpose, the relationship becomes a partnership rather than a dependency. Neither person is trying to fill a void inside the other. Instead, they're choosing to share the lives they've already built. That difference changes everything. Our conversations gradually became deeper. We began discussing our goals, our values, and the lessons we had learned from the experiences that shaped us. Those discussions revealed how similar our perspectives were about the things that truly matter. We both believed that honesty should never disappear from a relationship. We both believed that respect is essential for maintaining trust. And we both understood that love requires patience and effort from both people. Those shared beliefs created a strong foundation between us. One evening while we were discussing the future, you said something that stayed with me long after the conversation ended. You said that marriage should never feel like an escape from life's challenges. Instead, it should feel like a partnership that makes those challenges easier to face. Those words resonated deeply with me because they reflected exactly what I have been learning throughout my own journey. Marriage is not about finding someone who solves all your problems. It is about finding someone who stands beside you while you continue solving them together. That perspective changed the way I viewed the possibility of marriage. For many years, I had wondered whether I would ever feel truly ready for that level of commitment. Not because I doubted the idea of love, but because I wanted to be certain that it could offer stability rather than uncertainty. Now with you, that readiness felt real. Not because everything in life had become perfect, but because we both understood the importance of building something strong together. We were not rushing into anything blindly. We were building our connection carefully, through conversation, through trust, through the gradual process of understanding each other's lives and ambitions. As that process continued, I realized something important. The journey that once felt lonely had actually been preparing me for this moment. Every challenge I faced had strengthened my resilience. Every lesson I learned had clarified my values. And every year I spent focusing on purpose had prepared me to recognize the kind of connection that truly matters. Now, when I thought about marriage, I no longer saw it as a distant milestone that only happens after falling deeply in love. Instead, I saw it as the natural continuation of a partnership built on purpose, respect, and shared values. Marriage is not the starting point of love. It is the commitment to protect and nurture the love that already exists between two people who understand what they're building together. With you, that understanding felt clear. We had both walked our own paths. We had both faced challenges that shaped our perspectives, and now we found each other at a moment when both of us were ready to build something meaningful together. Purpose had guided our individual journeys. Love had brought those journeys together, and now, standing at this point in life, I felt something I had never felt before. Readiness. Not the kind of readiness that comes from pressure or expectation, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are, what you value, and who you want beside you as you continue walking forward. Because when purpose comes first and love grows from that foundation, the idea of marriage no longer feels uncertain. It feels like the next step in a journey that has already begun. As the connection between purpose and love became clearer in my life, I started to notice something interesting about the way people often misunderstand marriage. Many believe that marriage is the final destination of love, the moment when everything is finally complete. They imagine that once two people reach that point, the journey becomes easier and the challenges of life somehow disappear. But the more I observed life, the more I realized that marriage is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new one, a journey that requires even more patience, responsibility, and understanding than the path that led to it. Marriage is not simply about loving someone deeply. It is about building a shared life where both people continue to grow while supporting each other through every stage of that growth. For a long time, I wanted to be certain that I was prepared for that responsibility, not only emotionally but mentally and practically as well. I wanted to know that I could offer stability to someone else rather than bringing uncertainty into their life. I wanted to know that I could stand beside a partner during difficult moments without losing the direction I had spent years building. Those thoughts guided many of the choices I made over time. Whenever I faced important decisions about work, personal development, or the direction of my future, I reminded myself that those decisions would eventually affect more than just my own life. One day, if I chose to marry someone, those decisions would also affect the person who stood beside me. That awareness created a deeper sense of responsibility. It pushed me to think carefully about the kind of life I was creating, and not just in terms of success or financial stability, but in terms of character. Character is the foundation of every strong relationship. Without it, even the most exciting connections can slowly lose their strength. But when two people value honesty, patience, and respect, the relationship can withstand challenges that might otherwise break it apart. During the years when I focused on building my purpose, I also spent time reflecting on those values. I asked myself difficult questions. What kind of partner would I want to be for someone else? How would I handle disagreements or misunderstandings? Would I be able to remain patient when life became stressful or unpredictable? Those questions were not always easy to answer. Sometimes they revealed areas where I still needed to grow. But instead of ignoring those weaknesses, I chose to work on them. Growth requires honesty with yourself. It requires acknowledging that you are not perfect and that there will always be areas where improvement is possible. But that willingness to grow is exactly what prepares someone for the responsibility of sharing their life with another person. Over time, those reflections helped me become more confident in the person I was becoming. And then life brought you into my path. Meeting you felt different from anything I'd experienced before. Not because there was some dramatic moment where everything suddenly changed, but because our connection felt balanced from the beginning. You were not searching for someone to rescue you from uncertainty. You were building your own life with purpose and determination. That independence was something I respected deeply. Because when two people meet after developing their own sense of direction, the relationship becomes something far stronger than simple attraction. It becomes partnership. Partnership means recognizing that both individuals bring their own strengths into the relationship. It means respecting the effort each person has invested in building their life and supporting each other as those lives continue to evolve. With you, that partnership began to form naturally. Our conversations were thoughtful and honest. We spoke openly about our experiences, our ambitions, and the values that guided our decisions. Those conversations revealed how much we had in common. We both believed that relationships should be built on trust rather than assumption. We both believed that communication is essential, especially during moments when life becomes difficult. And we both understood that love requires effort from both people if it is going to last. Those shared beliefs created a strong foundation between us. As time passed, I began to notice how comfortable our connection felt. There was no pressure to rush into anything. Instead, everything developed gradually, through the simple process of getting to know each other more deeply with every conversation. That patience allowed our trust to grow. Trust is one of the most valuable elements in any relationship. Without trust, even love can become fragile. But when trust exists, it allows both people to be honest about their thoughts, their fears, and their hopes for the future. With you, that honesty felt natural. I never felt the need to pretend to be someone I was not. I could share my thoughts openly, and you responded with understanding rather than judgment. That kind of openness created a sense of safety between us. Safety is something that many people overlook when thinking about love, but it is incredibly important. When two people feel safe with each other, they are able to express their true selves without fear of rejection or misunderstanding. That freedom allows the relationship to grow stronger over time. One evening, while reflecting on everything we had shared so far, I realized something that surprised me. For the first time in my life, the idea of marriage did not feel like a distant responsibility or a complicated decision. It felt natural. Not because society expects it, not because of pressure from family or friends, but because the connection we had built together already contained the qualities that marriage requires. Purpose, trust, love. Those elements were already present in our relationship. Marriage would simply be the commitment to protect and nurture what we had already begun building together. That realization brought a sense of clarity to my thoughts. For years, I had believed that I needed to achieve certain milestones before feeling ready for marriage. I thought readiness would appear only after reaching specific goals or creating the perfect circumstances. But now I understood something different. Readiness does not come from perfection. It comes from understanding who you are, understanding what you value, and understanding the person you want to walk beside as you continue your journey through life. With you, that understanding felt complete. We had both spent years building our own lives and learning from our experiences. Now those journeys had brought us together at a moment when both of us were ready to build something meaningful together. Purpose had guided our individual paths. Love had brought those paths together. And now, standing at this point in life, the idea of marriage felt less like a question and more like a natural step forward. Not a step taken out of pressure or expectation, but a step taken with confidence, respect, and the quiet certainty that the partnership we had created was strong enough to continue growing for years to come. Because when purpose comes first and love grows naturally from that foundation, marriage becomes more than just a promise. It becomes the beginning of a life built together with intention, trust, and shared purpose. As the idea of marriage slowly began to feel more natural in my life, I realized something that many people often overlook. Marriage is not simply about love or companionship. It is about responsibility, patience, and the ability to stand beside someone through moments that are not always easy. For years, I had watched people around me enter relationships with excitement but without preparation. At the beginning, everything looked perfect. The connection seemed strong, the emotions were intense, and the future felt full of promise. But life eventually tests every relationship. Challenges appear unexpectedly. Plans change. Stress from work, family responsibilities, or personal struggles begins to influence the way people treat each other. During those moments, the true strength of a relationship becomes visible. Some relationships grow stronger through those challenges. Others slowly fall apart. The difference between those outcomes often comes down to one thing: preparation. Preparation is not something people usually associate with love. Many believe that love should simply happen naturally, and everything else will follow. But the truth is that meaningful relationships require the same effort and dedication that any important part of life requires. You cannot build a stable future without preparation. The years I spent focusing on purpose were, in many ways, preparing me for the kind of partnership that marriage requires. During that time, I learned how to handle responsibility without feeling overwhelmed. I learned how to remain patient during difficult moments and how to make decisions based on long-term values rather than temporary emotions. Those lessons became part of who I was. And when I met you, I realized how important those lessons truly were. Our connection did not feel rushed or uncertain. Instead, it felt balanced and thoughtful. Both of us understood that meaningful relationships are built slowly, through communication and mutual respect. From the beginning, our conversations reflected that understanding. We spoke openly about our experiences, the challenges we had faced, and the lessons those experiences had taught us. There was no need to hide parts of ourselves or pretend that life had always been easy. Us became the foundation of everything we shared. Honesty creates trust. Trust creates stability. And stability allows love to grow in a way that lasts. Where the things I admired most about you was the clarity you had about your own life. You understood what mattered to you, and you were not afraid to pursue your goals with determination. That kind of clarity is rare. Many people spend years trying to understand what they truly want from life. But you had taken the time to reflect on your values and ambitions, and that self-awareness made our connection stronger. Because when two people know themselves, they can understand each other more easily. Our conversations often returned to the idea of building something meaningful together. Not just a relationship, but a life. A life where both of us could continue growing while supporting each other's ambitions. A life where respect remained constant even during moments of disagreement. And a life where love was expressed not only through words, but through everyday actions. Those ideas made the possibility of marriage feel different from anything I had imagined before. Marriage no longer felt like a distant milestone that happens after years of uncertainty. Instead, it felt like the natural continuation of a partnership that had already begun. Another realization slowly became clear to me during that time. Marriage is not about finding someone perfect. Perfection does not exist. Everyone carries imperfections, insecurities, and areas where growth is still needed. What matters is not whether someone is perfect, but whether both people are willing to grow together. Growth requires patience. There will always be moments when life becomes stressful or unpredictable. During those moments, the ability to remain patient and supportive becomes incredibly important. With you, I could see that patience clearly. Whenever we discuss difficult topics or reflected on past experiences, you approached those conversations with understanding rather than judgment. That ability to listen and reflect made every conversation feel meaningful. It created a sense that we were not simply sharing thoughts, but building something deeper. Trust continued to grow between us as time passed. Trust is not built through grand promises. It is built through consistent actions. Through the small ways people show that they care about each other's well-being. When you remembered something I had mentioned days earlier, it showed that you valued our conversations. When you offered encouragement during moments when I felt uncertain, it reminded me that you believed in the direction I was building for my life. Those gestures might seem simple, but they carried enormous meaning. Because they demonstrated something essential. You were invested in a life we were building together. Investment is what transforms love into commitment. When two people invest their time, energy, and attention into each other's lives, the relationship becomes stronger with every passing day. That investment created a sense of partnership between us. Partnership is the true heart of marriage. Marriage is not about two individuals losing their identities. Instead, it's about two people choosing to combine their strengths while continuing to grow individually. With you, that balance felt natural. We respected each other's ambitions. We supported each other's dreams. And we understood that the journey ahead would require cooperation rather than competition. As these realizations became clearer, I found myself thinking about the future more often, not in a distant or uncertain way, but in a thoughtful and hopeful way. I imagined what life might look like years from now, the goals we might achieve together, the experiences we might share, and the quiet moments that would shape the everyday rhythm of our lives. Those thoughts did not create pressure. Instead, they created excitement. Because for the first time, the idea of sharing that future with someone felt right. Purpose had guided my journey for many years. It had taught me discipline, patience, and the importance of building a life with intention. Now love had appeared in a way that complemented that purpose, rather than distracting from it. And because of that, the idea of marriage felt less like a question and more like a natural step forward. A step toward building a life together. A step toward creating a partnership based on trust, respect, and shared values. Looking back at the path that led to this moment, I feel grateful for every lesson life has taught me. The years of growth, the challenges that strengthened my character, and the experiences that helped me recognize the value of a connection like the one we share. Purpose came first because it shaped the person I became. Love came second because it appeared when I was ready to appreciate it fully. And now, with everything we have built together, I understand something clearly. Marriage is not simply the next chapter in life. It is the decision to protect, nurture, and continue building the connection that has already become one of the most meaningful parts of our journey. And with you, that journey feels worth every step it took to reach this moment.